Jesus replied, "Weren't 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? No one returned to praise God except this foreigner?" Then Jesus said to him, "Get up and go. Your faith has made you whole." This is the word of God to the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
This is one of those curious lessons in Luke's account. This is the only one of the 4 gospel accounts where this incident is recorded. In it, we have a curious blend of social reality and theological significance. So, what does that have to do with us here in the 21st century? Simply this. When was the last time you thanked God for something? Now, our Muslim brothers and sisters have, as one of the 5 pillars of Islam, the mandate to be in prayer 5 times a day. In the monastic orders, in the Christian tradition, they have a practice called the Liturgy of the Hours. And at one time, it was 9 times a day. And I think now it's 5 or 6. Every religious tradition has at its core the idea of interaction with the deity. Somehow to petition, somehow to praise, all kinds of reasons people pray. But when it comes to us Christians, particularly those of us in the 21st century, and that's everybody here, thank you for laughing, I appreciate that.
Someone's
How often are we intentional about thanking God? Now, Paul would later say in one of his letters, "Give thanks to God in everything." Now, I don't know about you, but there are some things that I have not thanked God for. Losing a job, getting divorced, losing a father. There are some things that happen to us that the idea of being thankful not only is difficult, but it's offensive. If someone was hurt or attacked, would you go up to them and say, "Aren't you grateful for this? Didn't it draw you closer to God?" No, you wouldn't say that because the mere idea is just bonkers. And that's a theological term. But in this lesson, Luke records Jesus in a practical situation. He's still on that journey to Jerusalem where he will face death because that is the will of his Father. Now, this is not a sermon about the atonement idea. That was a practice where Jesus, the man, embraced the will of God. Now, I do not for a moment believe that Jesus went to that cross with, "Thank you, God, for the nails in my hands." That was just, no. But he did it because that's how, well, you have to come back for Easter or hear the rest of it. But the point that I'm making in a rather poor fashion is that Jesus, making his way to Jerusalem, encountered people. Now, you say, well, it's good. I mean, he didn't encounter dinosaurs. He didn't encounter Martians. He encountered people. In this particular event, though, he encounters people who were less than, who because of custom, because of religious mandate, because of disease, had been shunned, had been pushed out away from the community. And these people were less than. They were less than nobodies. They were ostracized, shunned. Such was that the requirement was when you had leprosy, and leprosy is, a whole host of different diseases, you were required to yell, "Unclean," as a way of protecting good, decent people, pure people, from your contagious condition. Now that makes sense on a medical sort of way. But what about religious? Why would a community shun one of its own? And it kind of defies our thinking, and yet we have done it. Churches in this day and age continue to shun people and tell them that they're less than, that they're not loved by God, that there's something wrong with them, and to stay away until you get fixed. And then you can come back and be one of us. But Jesus, in seeing these 10 men, doesn't ask them, have you been in Sunday school recently? Have you paid your tithe? Have you fill in the blank? There's no questions. There was no moment where he says, let me examine your religious credentials. Jesus knew what they were. They were ritually impure. Of course they're not going to be in the synagogue or in the temple. Of course. And yet, in the moment of need, in the moment of mercy, he simply says, go and show yourself to the priest. Had they been impure, ritually or legally, they could not have done that. So by the very word of saying, go, well, you kind of figured out what happened. They were clean, ritually and otherwise. And off they go in obedience. In obedience to God's command, they go. And then something happens that Luke records that would have turned the first hearers of this story on their ear. One of them was a Samaritan. Think about that. A community that would have had nothing to do with Jesus, nothing to do with the Jewish faith, nothing to do with the priest or the temple. Imagine how desperate it would have been for that man to associate with the other people who had also been despised by their own community. The Samaritan comes back, falls at Jesus' feet in a posture I mean, that phrase, he fell on his face, doesn't mean he was clumsy. Thank you. It was a posture of absolute subjugation. This attitude of, oh my God, this is beyond anything I could have hoped for or dreamed about. This is beyond my expectation. I just wanted mercy. Instead, I got restoration and help and hope. This is what it's about. This moment of realization that I didn't deserve it. I didn't even ask for healing. I simply asked for mercy. Instead, I get all that and more. Now, this is where it gets good. Everything I've said up to this point is just prelude. Are you ready? Okay. This is really one of those cool passages in the Scripture. You've got to go back and read it because this applies to you. This is something that you can take home, copy down, put on your refrigerator, on your bathroom mirror, and memorize it. Weren't 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? No one returned to praise God except this foreigner. Then Jesus said to him, "Get up and go. Your faith has made you whole." Now, many translations, including the one in the pews, translate that phrase as, "Your faith has made you well." But that is a bad translation. Your faith has made you whole. What's the difference? If you recall, just before this lesson, Jesus offers the parable of the mustard seed. You all can probably recite it from memory. It probably shows up in one of Claudia's books. If you use that, please give me credit for it. Jesus says in that previous parable, if you had faith the size of a mustard seed, you could command the mountain to go into the sea and it would have to obey you. How big is your faith this morning? Do any of you feel up to the challenge of walking outside, looking up at any of the peaks on the Flatiron, and saying, "You, go"? We have a camera. We can tape it. It would probably go viral within moments. But Jesus isn't saying to us, either in the parable of the mustard seed or in this account, he's not saying it's up to you. Because faith, grace, mercy, love, all of that are gifts from God. Now, Belinda, her mother, had a phrase when something happened. It was, have you parents ever said to your children, "Say thank you"? Her mother had this expression when her children didn't want to be thankful. It was,
Say thank you nicely.
And the response from Rob and Melinda was,
Thank you nicely. We were about 6.
you see, this idea that we have to give thanks. We're required to be thankful. You know, it's like the idea of forgiving someone. If it were up to us, the world would go blind because of our revenge, of our hatred of someone else. But Jesus says, even the smallest amount of God's grace and mercy and love is sufficient if you will access it. It's there. It's right in front of you. But we hold ourselves back. We like to think that we're good people. We like to think that what's happened isn't fair. We like to think that all these things that I experience in my life are the result of someone else's activity. But what the Samaritan shows us is that it wasn't the disease that separated him from God. It wasn't the attitude or actions of his community. It wasn't even the fact that he was a foreigner. It was the human condition that says, what's mine is mine. What's yours is mine too. So when we read this story and we hear Jesus saying, weren't 10 saved or healed? Where are the other 9? We have to ask ourselves, why have I not returned to give thanks to God for even the smallest measure of mercy, the smallest amount of grace, the smallest experience of love? Adam Hamilton, a couple weeks ago when I was at that conference, on the last morning, he talked about this idea of giving thanks. And he mentioned the Muslim pilgrims. And he said, imagine if each of us here today, the first thought when we woke up in the morning, kind of mirroring Martin Luther's expression of, I am baptized. That's the first thing he said every morning. Hamilton said, if you said thank you to God, just thank you God, and then you got up and did your stuff. If you did that once a day, at the end of 1 year, you would have said thanks to God how many times?
65. Unless it's a leap year.
Unless it's a leap year. But he said, imagine if you, at each meal, didn't go into a big elaborate, thank you God, bless this food, all this, yeah. But you simply said, thank you God for that moment. And you did it again at lunch. You did it again at supper. And you did it again before you went to bed. That's 5 times a day. Just 5 words. And I know some of you guys, don't like to use up all your words in one day, so this is just 5. 5 times you say thank you. At the end of the year, some of you are better at math than I am, it's a little over 1,800 times. 1,800 prayers. 1,800 expressions of your acknowledgement that God is here in that moment. Imagine will affect your life. We don't know the Samaritan's name. We don't know what happened to him next. I've never come across any account or even a made-up story about the Samaritan who was healed, what happened to him the next day. But he is us. Because sometimes we have been separated from the community. Sometimes we are pushed aside by society. Sometimes we feel that we have done something or thought something or experienced something so terrible that not even God can forgive us. I saw a meme on Facebook recently that said, if God loves you and God is so powerful that you think you can prevent God from breaking through, you, my precious friend, are not that powerful. God does not ask us to be powerful or perfect or church members or choir singers or preachers or anything else. God only asks us to love in the same measure that we are loved. That's all. That's the sum expression of the Christian faith. If you're not there yet, if you're not in the position where you can do that, offer to God thanks for what you can. And each day, come closer to your God. And the realization that God has been present all along. Amen.